Well, this is an interesting device. I have a feeling somehow it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but an interesting challenge, let's say. This is a Crown 2200, I believe. I will look at the label in a moment. Crown is a Japanese company. This, I think, must have been used or built for the USA, and I'll have a few reasons for that. First of all, there's an FCC sticker on the back of it, and a few other things point me to that as well. But let's just have a look at the things it does. So it has 4 wavebands, FM and AM, and the other thing which makes me think it's a USA based thing is the markings on AM, which we would generally call medium wave. So it has 5, 6, 7, 8. Now these conform to, these are basically tens of kilohertz, or sorry, hundreds of kilohertz, and that's how they tend to label them in America, whereas we would have had, 1200. In fact, we'd more likely have labelled it in meters and not kilohertz. You've got a standard 8 FM band here, 87 to 108. You've got a shortwave, but the interesting thing is above 108 here you've got this band marked as air. So this is for listening to aircraft signals, and it's a band that you don't find on many radios, so it'd be interesting to see if we can actually get any reception on that. It's got quite a nice feel to the controls. They feel quite chunky, and they don't feel as if they're falling off like a lot of radios of this age, and I'm guessing it's sort of late 60s do. It's got this, we've seen this before on a few radios, this weird tuning thing where you've got dual scale. The controls here for selecting the waveband are nice and chunky again. They feel quite good quality. There's a little tone control here. On the other side you've got a sleep switch, sort of sleep mode, where it will turn itself off after a while, and 2 earphone sockets. So if you and your partner both like listening to air transmissions in bed, well, there you go. It may be of use to somebody as some sort of therapy, but we don't go into that on this channel. On the top of it somebody has written fragile, put some fragile tape on. Not very helpful, because I'm going to have to clean all that off, and certainly this aerial is a bit fragile, which is presumably why they've held it together with a bit of insulating tape. The handle feels a bit not quite right, but it's not too bad. The back of it, yeah, it's in a bit of a state, isn't it? Comes off with these 2 things here, so you lift this up and you get access to the back. Now let's just have a look at what it says here on the where's the best way to get that into shot. So you can see here it's got this thing about having a long mains lead here, which plugs into this socket here at the top when it's not in use, and I think that, looking at the circuit diagram, is a sort of switching thing, so that when it's plugged into here it allows the battery to function. When you take it out, the battery is taken out of the circuit. The mains lead seems to have disappeared, been cut away. Also, this on and off switch handles both mains and battery. That's really nasty from my point of view. I don't really like that at all. I wouldn't really like to operate this radio on the mains on that basis. I can see that this is another thing, the batteries. Where's the back of the battery compartment? And I can't see how the batteries would be in here. It looks like it should have 4, well, it tells you it's 4 C batteries here. But how do they go in there? I mean, they'd just fall out, wouldn't they? Maybe there's a bit missing, I don't know. I can see off the back of the aerial here, there's this loose piece which we can tighten up, and that seems to me to be the positive for the batteries. Now these are all PNP transistors, so we're in upside down world. So positive is the bottom, is the ground and the chassis, and negative is the live, as it were. So I can see that is going off here to this capacitor, and this is also a bit loose. So I don't know, I can try and get 4 C cells in there. I imagine they'll fall out. But the other thing is there's an insulating bit here, so that's on that aerial, but it's insulated from the aerial itself. And there's another tag here on the aerial which goes nowhere, so presumably the telescopic aerial doesn't work anywhere because it's not connected. I can also see that on this switch here there's a wire fallen off, and that's a very complicated switch. I've got the manual for it, and it does sort of give you some information, probably enough to reconnect all these. I think what we'll do is power it up. Once I've found a way to get batteries on it, we'll power it up and see if it makes any noise at all. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put a 4-way AA battery box in here, which should be enough to get it powered up, and I turn it on and I get a big fat nothing. Now that's all slightly disappointing, so I'm going to have a quick check around here. So it, like I said, we're in sort of upside down world because this is PNP transistors, so the positive here is the ground, and if I look, say, at the top of this capacitor, so I have got nothing there, so I switched it off, didn't I, again? Let's just try switching it on again. So it's switched on again. Yeah, and I've got 6.4 volts here, so that looks right. And now when I look at this, which is a ground wire, sorry, not this one, this is a ground wire, isn't it? That's the one to the battery box. That goes up to this switch here. Now the odd thing is, I look at the diagram and look at the way that it's set up. So I found a picture of the inside of the box. I mean, it seems to me that this plug here, SB3, when you look at the inside of the box, it doesn't really show it here, does it? Yeah, it does, it's there. But when I look back at the thing here, it seems to imply that you should have a plug in here, and I think these that plug is actually in the path. And so when you're not using the mains plug, you plug it in here, and I think that completes the circuit. And I have a, yeah, listen to that. Something happened then. Yeah, so it needs a plug in here for it to work. And obviously somebody's taken the mains lead away, so it doesn't work on the batteries. However, I've got one of these things that we use when we're travelling to places where they don't have proper pluggery, and despite the fact that it says do not use in the UK, I'm going to use it. Put in there. Should be able to fix our problem. Well, it fixes a problem in that we now have something where we are nothing. Let's see what we get across the various wave bands. So we should be able to see if I can shut the lid here. That might be the next challenge. So we're all powered up, and what do we get? So I'm putting it on FM. Is that FM? So I put it on FM. I'm not getting much, and I think that's because, as I said, the aerial is disconnected. So this aerial here, I don't think it's connected to anything. Well, we're getting something. Yeah, we better not play that for too long, we'll be in trouble. But we appear to be getting something on FM. There's a lot of DC on that, I don't like the sound of that. AM. So AM, I'd expect something around here. Not really a sausage on that. The next one is air. Again, the aerial's not connected, so would we expect much? I think those are beacons, so I think there's something on that band, so not picking up anything else, but maybe when we put the aerial on it'll get better. And shortwave.
Reason was that German dyes were no longer available in China on account of the war. An American chemist in New York told me that in Germany several specialists worked on one color.
Well, there you go. So we're getting something on shortwave, even without the whip aerial, so that's pretty good. So I think, first of all, what I'm going to do is put the connections back that I think should be there, and see if that improves things. Okay, so I've put it back together, having put those wires back into place. And we do seem to have signal on FM now. One of the things I've noticed is that it's miles out on the actual tuning alignment.
Though it's been said,
so I think that is that. I don't know what station that is, to be honest. We're going to have to wait for an ident of some sort. But I think it's, I don't know, I think it might be Radio 2. Perhaps not.
Christmas songs of all time. That is Nat King Cole on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
Ah.
Hey, thank you so much for listening today. It's been an absolute...
Right, so that's Radio Cambridgeshire, and Radio Cambridge should be on 96, and it's on 94. Right, so let's go. What else do we find?
Down to the big day, we're bringing you fantastic daily rewards thanks to Chase, the digital bank that makes every day rewarding. This week, there's a £550 Selfridges voucher, GHD hair straighteners, and a Smeg coffee machine to be won. Discover all the rewards of banking with Chase and enter to win today's prize at heart.co.uk.
Right.
This Christmas, get that Superdrug feeling. Find better than half-price deals on selected fragrances.
So if that's Heart, that should be, I think, 103, and it's doing about 100. But there are two frequencies, I think. No, I'm finding nothing here.
This Christmas, Superdrug.
So I think, and I think that was classic FM, although you couldn't really hear it much through the noise. The aerial seems to be quite intermittent, so let's get back into this again. I think basically I'm just going to replace this aerial because it's just rubbish. Now what the problem I have there is that I don't have anything that directly fits that sort of fixing. So this has a fixing where, as you can see, there's a screw underneath it here which goes into it, and then it fixes onto there through that. I haven't got that. I've got some aerials, but so all the aerials I have spare are things like this that have a fixing that goes the other way, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. That's going to probably require a little bit of creativity to get that in, but certainly this aerial appears to be broken and not much use. Other than that, I think we're getting somewhere. It sounds as it's got nothing on AM. Whether that's the usual ferrite coil broken, I don't know, or just a connection. We can have a look at that. I think the first thing is to replace this aerial. Just as an aside, I've decided now what I'm going to do is, in order to simplify things a bit, I've decided to remove everything related to the hideous mains arrangements that I think are extremely unsafe. Any sort of mains transformer stuff I've decided to completely remove from the unit, so that can go. I'm going to take out this 2-pin main socket that's required to. That seems to be held in. Is that screws? Of course, they're not small nuts, are they? They're just the other ends of these screws from this side, so it will just lift out like that. So that just comes straight out. Lots of screws as usual, but yeah, that can be easily taken out, so that's good. So let's have a look at the work we've done on this device then. The mains operation, as I previously said, was, let's say, suboptimal and frankly dangerous. I wouldn't have wanted this. There's a possibility, I think, the way this was wired, of a hot chassis, which would mean that, you know, you could have this plugged into the mains, you take the back off to change the batteries or something like that, you put your finger on this and you're dead. That's probably not a good thing. Maybe the Japanese were a bit not too worried about that, but it's, oops, see, that's quite painful as well, but that's less serious. Anyway, I took all the main stuff out. It was absolute rubbish. It shouldn't have been in there. It shouldn't have been sold in this country. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was only sold in America, along with guns. The things I've done, so I obviously took the main stuff out, rewired this a bit, put some put a AA battery holder in here. I'm not particularly happy with what I did with the aerial. I found another aerial and I put this standoff here, and because as I said previously, it had a different fixing. I don't think that's strong enough. I'm going to make a little bracket and put that on there and do that better. In fact, I've got a smaller aerial because having taken out those useless C-cell things which had no backing on them and you couldn't use them, there's a bit more room, and I think I could push this further up and use a smaller aerial as well. So I've still got some work to do on that, but it does work now on FM and on shortwave. It's pretty good on shortwave, actually. It's better than the Grundig Yacht Boy on shortwave, which is surprising. I think it works on the airband. I don't know. I'm going to have to take advice on this. But I did hear somebody talking on it very briefly. But I can hear carrier, but nothing happens. Then occasionally somebody says something. So I think it probably does work. Medium wave, or AM, as it's known on here, nothing. So we're going to have to do a bit of work on that. So we'll have to look through the circuitry. I don't quite understand why that's not working, because I buzzed out the aerial coils and they look okay, and there's nothing different in the circuit path between AM, medium wave, I hate these terms, and short wave. So I don't know why medium wave wouldn't work and short wave would, but there's obviously a reason for that and I haven't worked out. I've also done a bit of cleanup on it. If you remember, it had this little, well, not little, it had this massive sticker on here that said fragile, and there was lots of glue on it. I used, removing glue is often quite difficult, but the general way to remove glue is to use a lot of alcohol. I put a lot of alcohol on here, and it didn't completely clean it off, so I put some more alcohol on. And then when I cleaned off the glue, I put some of the anti-static cleaner on it. And then after that I put the Halford's sort of dashboard wipes on it. Because it's not particularly warm outside, I didn't open the window. And I'd had wine at lunch, so I do apologise if some of what follows sounds a little incoherent. But overall, it's looking pretty good. It's sounding pretty good. Let's try and get something on it. FM certainly works pretty well. What I have noticed is that it's quite susceptible to interference, so using it in here, it's a lot worse than the other radios on FM. Anyway, I'm going to play some of this now. There'll be a bit of a gap because I have to find a bit of FM that doesn't have copyright music on it.
Your station for the biggest songs all day long.
Star Radio.
So yeah, I think there's a bit of work needed here still, and we'll do that in a part 2 video. Overall, I don't think this is a bad radio. I think it exemplifies a lot about Japanese technology and how it was seen by us in the 1970s. And as I said, I'm not sure when this radio comes from. It might have been 60s, 70s. Certainly the build quality of this is quite good compared to a lot of the British radios, or some of the British radios I've seen, particularly the GECs of that period. But the design, the overall design isn't very good. And that's sort of how I saw Japanese cars at the time, I seem to remember, is that everybody said, oh, I've got a Nissan or a Datsun, as they were known in those days. It's very reliable, much more reliable than a Morris Marina or a Ford Cortina. But they weren't really very nice cars, and this looks a bit like a Japanese car of the era, almost like its namesake, the Toyota Crown. Really not functionally that good. Maybe better built, but they had a bit of catching up to do, and eventually they did catch up when you look at some of the Sony stuff that they built later. I don't think this is one of the best things that the Japanese industry has ever produced, but I think it's very interesting, and I'm quite happy to put a bit more work into it to try and get it properly working again. So we'll see that in a future video.